Here's a name I can say from the Eradicator.
Hello and welcome to this channel, everybody. This is the Eradicator, and in this video we are going to talk about the latest episode of Star Citizen Piler Talk Alpha 3.8. We've got a lot of very interesting people talking here about the latest patch, including, as you can see, Chris Roberts, Tony Z, Todd Pepe, as well as oh my gosh, I forgot his name. I forgot his name. Sean Tracy, of course, and I love Sean Tracy. He's a very likable guy. It's early morning. I still need to drink my coffee. I went to the theater yesterday at 11:30 p.m. to watch the latest episode of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. I may do a review later in this. Oops, I may do a review later in this channel. So anyway, guys, let's talk about it. Let's check out Piler Talk, and I'll be doing comments throughout the entire episode. This may be a long one, guys, so brace yourselves.
You go on yet? No. I am going to bring this home in one take.
Let's do it. You got it.
No pressure.
None.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pillar Talk. We're going to have some fun conversation here, and we're taking a little bit of time out of our busy schedule to talk about what's coming in 3.8, which will be right after CitizenCon.
Yeah. Excellent.
Big thing that we're shipping with 3.8 is...
So the interesting thing that Chris Roberts says here is we're going to talk about the 3.8, which will come right after CitizenCon. So that means that they shot this before CitizenCon, obviously. So, but it seems like they already obviously knew what they were going to show during CitizenCon, and they were already very confident that server-side object container streaming and a lot of these features were going to make it to the patch. So that's already good here. We always enjoy a little bit of confidence when it comes to Chris and co. So really enjoy here to hear that.
Is MicroTech v4, which is a major step forward for how we realize our universe and star systems. And the place that most people will have seen it in CitizenCon would have been MicroTech, which is also getting shipped with 3.8. Now we're only shipping MicroTech itself, not its moons. New Babbage and the spaceport exteriors will be there, but the interior of it won't be until 3.9, just because we really want to do it right. But
So quick, this is what they're communicating on here. This is what they are saying. However, there was a very interesting Newsweek article released also today. I'll put the link in the description down below if you guys want to read it. But this is an article in which Sean Tracy was interviewed. And Sean Tracy here says something a little bit different. He says that for testing purposes of server-side object container streaming, that is the reason why we are not seeing New Babbage interior as well as the moons of MicroTech, not because they are not ready, but simply because they want to test server-side object container streaming first, see if it's working well with just an extra planet, and then they are going to implement the interiors and the moons if they figure out that it is ready or not. Now, it turns out, obviously, that since they decided to make this decision, of course, development for New Babbage interiors and the moons of MicroTech slowed down or even stalled, as we could have seen in the roadmap for quite some time. But this is not exactly what Chris Roberts is saying here.
You know, we've worked quite a lot on sort of the environmental effects in CitizenCon, you know, showing outside of MicroTech, flying down and just seeing how seamlessly
the transitions,
transitions to detail. There's no popping, there's no LODs that you can appreciate. You know, you're in a snowstorm and you can barely see, and on your helmet visor, it's slush, or on your canopy, there's slush, or you're in a rainstorm, there's raindrops, you're going through a cloud.
What we've been developing, and we've talked about it a little bit, is what we call the actor status system. Basically, there's a Visio chart of every single thing that affects every single other thing. And what we wanted to do was not just wait till this is all in, but do some stuff that's extremely relevant to what we're doing right now. And the most relevant that you have on an ice planet is obviously the cold. So we want the characters to be reacting to the cold. And as you guys have seen in CitizenCon already, hypothermia isn't just your suit's not warm enough, so take some damage and you die. That is kind of the typical gamey, here you have some temperature, I give you a number, oh, you can't handle that number because you don't have the right suit on.
Now, I want to talk about something here, and this is a point that was actually brought by Failure to Report. So this is a guy that I don't always appreciate. in terms of what the content that he is making. But I gotta say that he really made a very good point in the fact that the suit that they're talking about here is a suit that is designed for cold. But why is this suit necessary? Because we're actually already going with our suits in outer space. We're EVing in outer space with our suits, and space is much colder than the very cold and frigid atmosphere of MicroTech. Yeah, MicroTech is going to be between 0 to minus 140 degrees Celsius, if I'm correct. But outer space can be as cold as minus 200 degrees, and our suits can already go into there. So what's the point of having one of those suits if our regular suits can already handle the coldness of outer space? This is a point that he made in one of his videos a while back, and I thought that was an extremely good point here, and I wanted to bring it here once again, because I think that this is a message that does indeed need to be shared. So once again, shout out to Failure to Report here for bringing this up to the conversation, I think.
And you die. It's not that simple for us. I think it's got much more of the fidelity that you've come to expect from Star Citizen, where it's not just some simple gameplay
And
number.
before, we had room system, which is just breathing. So either you have oxygen, you don't have oxygen. And also our suits before were just purely damage mitigation.
Yep.
You know, on bullets or projectiles coming at you. Now with this, I think internally we classify it as basically combat or utilitarian for the armors.
That's right.
And so then it gives us purpose for the utilitarian armors.
Sure, and you've got to make a decision as a player. If you got a Hornet, you can only store so many armors. You can only store so much stuff.
So you're talking about the visuals. You're talking about the impact on the characters themselves. It's interesting to think of what this means in terms of the potential to customize the economy. For example, the shops, what they're selling in terms of clothing and armor would be dramatically different on an ice planet like MicroTech versus a planet that's burning hot, or a planet that's incredibly toxic, etc.
I guess things would.
Now, let's talk a little bit about shops here. And here, I think I really hope that they are referencing to, for example, what you can buy on Hurston, especially with a rucksack. The rucksack on Hurston that you can buy is actually attached to a specific type of torso armor. Now, right now, of course, we're not really affected by temperatures in the game. But this specific type of torso armor is not really designed to be a suit. It is more designed to be able to carry some types of goods. So, for example, what if the torso armor that is being sold on Hurston is adapted to environments like Hurston's, and then you would find similar torso armors with rucksacks adapted to MicroTech because of the different core environment, then yes, in this case, it would make sense. But as of right now, this is not really the case. If they are going to adapt that and have a different set of armor or different set of suit for specific types of planets, then yeah, that would make sense, because obviously maybe a Hurston rucksack armor would perhaps be a little bit lighter than the rucksack armor on MicroTech, and which would allow then for maybe less fluid movements, but will be more resistant to the cold. This is going to be really interesting to see how CIG is going to integrate that into the game. But yeah, Tony Z here is making a strong point here. It will be very interesting also to see what type of different commodities are going to be available and needed in each of the different planets, how they are going to adapt that. And this is something that I really hope they are going to work on in the future.
Be worth more or less too. Like, I mean, if you're selling a bathing suit on, MicroTech.
But it's also like imagine a place. It's like you would expect to see lots of fairly deep wool jackets and stuff on a cold planet, whereas you'd see T-shirts elsewhere. Whereas you'd see more utilitarian gear over on Hurston. Stuff that's intended to deal with the noxious fumes and pollution over there.
And not only that, the tool set for it we have is far more powerful and actually artist friendly and quick to use. So
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an exciting thing for the artists. Like to give you an example, is that that making this transition, any technological transition that we make within the game, we usually have to backtrack over a bunch of old content that we've had in place, and it's not so old, but we have planets, we have moons. So when you're changing underlying technology like that, you got to be able to make those updates. But of course, we can't spend the 6 months that we would have taken to make Daymar in the past, and we were able to within about 2 months or so, and speaking on Marco's behalf, maybe a little bit here, within about two months, and everybody there.
Michelle Cooper, all those guys.
This is something that they've talked about during CitizenCon. The fact that it took them only 2 months to redo all of the different planets and moons of the Stanton system is very impressive, and I think is very promising for what's to come in the future for the game when it comes to the development of brand new star systems, including some that are going to be less complex than the Stanton system. I'm thinking of Nyx or Pyro, for example. That's why I'm totally confident that in 2020 we are going to see planetary systems like at least Pyro, so that we can test maybe the jump point mechanics. And by 2021, we're really going to, CIG is really going to crank it up when it comes to the release of new content, or at least areas for different gameplay.
We were able to apply those updates across all the planets.
Well, it's not
within
just
an amount
update.
of time.
They started from. It's basically started from scratch on rebuilding the
Rebuilt
planets,
it.
Right.
and they rebuilt all our current planets and did MicroTech and did all the moons in 2 months. And that's work that we've been working on for the past 2 years previously.
These evolutions are important with these tools, especially with one as large as this, because as we make them, as we make more of them, we learn so much about what we would like to do in the next one, and then we can apply that backwards, and then we learn some more and we can apply it back. It's like, we've been... in the first iterations of them, there was very little hand adjusting. In the next iteration, there was a little bit of hand adjusting, and everything has just evolved over the course of the years. It kind of lends itself to just what's going to work better for the artist, what's going to give us that sort of feel, but in the amount of time that we can actually spend on it. So I think it's a really important component of it.
3.8 is going to have server object container streaming, so SOCs as we call it.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the gameplay benefits?
From my standpoint, the biggest one will be AI and kind of the way that the ships feel in combat, as well as the FPS in combat. With our
This is something that we've been talking a lot in this channel here, how SSOCS or SOCs is going to change AI, and they're going to explain that further down the line during Pilot Talk here. But until now, AI performance has severely been bottlenecked by current by previous, I would say now, because now we do have SOCs, by previous server technologies, especially how there was a serious desync between what the players were seeing and what the actual servers were, and how the actual servers were handling the game. This is no longer the case in Star Citizen 3.8, and it is going to offer a much smoother combat experience overall, but not just combat, even non-combat activities with NPCs are going to be impacted by this technology. And this is a major step forward towards the right direction.
Our server frame rates, the way that they currently run, it's basically 7 to 10 frames. When we get it running at 30 frames a second on the server, you'll see a major benefit.
Now here, Todd Pepe is saying that we'll see major improvements. Absolutely, this was actually one of the main shockers when I was playing Star Citizen 3.8 for the first time in the PTU, was how quick things were. We are moving much quicker than we used to, simply because the servers could not handle all the data, and so we were feeling like we were actually at 30, 60 frames per second, but the servers were calculating that we were actually going at 7 or 10 frames per second, which is why everything felt a little bit sluggish, a little bit sloppy, and now everything feels so much quicker. When you're walking, when you're running, the animations, it's like a totally brand new experience. It feels like the difference between Star Citizen Alpha 3.2 and Star Citizen Alpha 3.3, you know, when the first iteration of object container streaming was included. This is how it feels with server-side object container streaming. It is, again, a night and day experience, and I'm delighted with this, with the improvements that we are seeing.
A lot less precise than what the client is, and so they get out of sync, and then you get weird behavior, a lag. And so if you get the server frame rate, which our target is 30 frames per second up, then the experience on the client side is better. And a lot of that weird AI behavior that people see, or doors not opening when they should open, isn't actually necessarily a bug. It's just that the server's gummed up or so far behind it, it's not telling the client in time to do stuff.
Exactly.
From my point of view, the biggest improvement on the SOC stuff is really going to be the fact that it's going to break us free from these limitations in terms of how many locations and how much content we can put into the solar system. So it's tangentially related to what Pappy is saying in regards to, he's talking.
I like how Tony Z is calling Todd Pappy Pappy. Giving us a little glimpse of how people interact within CIG. Just a little Easter egg, I think.
About the frame rate side of it, the part that I'm saying is, well, now we can get all these new locations without impacting the frame rate at all, because the server that you're on is still only loading what's absolutely necessary for the players that are on your server. And so what this is going to allow us to do is put more outposts, more space.
What? More outposts? Well, this would be really amazing. I mean, we already have a couple of outposts on some of the moons that we already have, but right now on the planets, we have, well, except for Hearthstone, we have quite a lot of outposts on Hearthstone, actually. But I would hope that we would have just as many outposts on the moons. I would hope that we will finally have outposts or places where we can buy stuff on ArcCorp, which is not the case. Right now, the only place where we can go is Area 18. I would love to at least be able to land on some of the buildings on Area 17, Area 20, Area 7, some of the others area on ArcCorp where we are supposed to be able to do things. Right now we can't, but if they put at least some rooftops where there could be some terminals, some kiosks where we could buy and sell stuff, I think that would be absolutely fantastic. I am also looking forward for them to doing that on MicroTech 2. According to what Tony Z is saying here, it seems like we are going towards that direction, and I am very pleased with what I am hearing here.
Stations, more derelict ships, more caves, all of this content that heretofore we've been, so constrained. We've had to basically weigh everything from the point of view of, well, what is this going to do to server performance? Because we know every single server, regardless of whether there's a single player there, is going to have to load this. And so we've already been in the mode for the last quarter or two, to where we're starting to get very sensitive about bringing in new content, whether we can afford it.
We've been that way since ArcCorp went in. Yeah. I mean, I think with 3.7, we wanted to put at least 100 caves in, and at least 100 in. I think we got 15.
I think right now, if you take a look on the servers, I think it's anything like 500,000 entities. It could be millions of physical entities, and so even with really powerful servers, which we have, that can take more time than we want. So the whole idea of server OCS is that you try to only have the bits you need to be simulating with, and therefore the frame rate should be higher. So our target server frame rate is 30 frames a second, and like you said, currently, with everything overloaded with content, it can get down to 5 or 6 frames a second, and that's when you don't have such a great experience, even if you have a high frame rate locally.
Absolutely, and for me, it's on the two different sort of pillar sides that I have. So on the technical content kind of side, the big difference is actually because we deal with the tools and the developer tools on that side. I think the biggest difference for us will be some internal differences, the turnaround time for us to run. So we're using.
This is also going to be something that's very interesting here. Sean Tracy is saying is how server-side object container streaming is going to help them develop new things within the game in a much faster way. Especially, it is going to drastically reduce loading times, which which can be an issue, especially if you are trying something, so it doesn't work, you need to unload, recode, reload the game again, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can waste literally hours in a day in loading time. If you keep on doing this back and forth, you are trying to do literal adjustments with server-side object container streaming. They are no longer going to need to do that, and we should expect also significant improvements when it comes to game development, especially the rate at which things are being developed within the game. It is going to make things much quicker.
So much RAM right now on the servers, so to be able to spin up the entire universe on a local dev box on just a normal kind of workstation was getting to the point that either one, it took a long time to get that thing loaded, because without server object container streaming, it didn't work like the client did, which was just loading what it needed to. It was going to bring everything in. So that took some time. But then additionally, we're at a point that you would just run out of memory. You wouldn't be able to do it. So we even put developer tools in place to be able to exclude stuff from the universe. But that would mean that if you ever had to do testing on any of those ones you've excluded, you got to shut down, restart up. So basically, the developer workflow is going to be a lot better because the turnaround is going to be a lot quicker.
The next stages is using the tech in the editor, also in Squadron 42 for the same reasons, where the level of detail that we're putting into all the locations and the star systems that we have in Squadron, requires you couldn't fit it all in memory, and you wouldn't want to fit it all in memory. And the server OCS, which is basically a kind of an authoritative version of the worldview that you can sort of move a viewpoint around and stream in just the bits you need and stream out, it would make a big difference for that.
Yeah, when your iteration loop just takes that amount of time. I mean, you'll move things once, you'll move things twice, and then you'll be, it's okay. I kind of spend 10 minutes, making that little tweak. But that's what Star Citizen is. We're about that kind of quality. We want that kind of iteration loop. So things like elevators, glitching out with you falling through them, halfway through them, and the server basically being at a different frame rate, or ships inside of ships, or when collisions happen, it comes down to a feel thing. Things are responsive. Things are actually feeding back to you when you expect them to. When you hit a guy, he's actually when the ragdoll happens, you see it at the same time. So
Sean Tracy bringing some interesting points here. These are experiences that we've all had in the verse. Weird animations in elevators, ships being junky when they are inside other ships. But the worst part that he's mentioning is, for example, players hitting other players. I've actually killed people just because I was touching them on Hurston. We were both going to the same elevators. My armor was touching the armor of another player, and I killed that player. Or sometimes I was killed like that too. So just because we were desynced and somehow our bodies inside the armors were being hurt by the armors of other people, and it was just weird. And with server-side object container streaming, because everybody is going to be in the same frames, these are no longer going to be the case, and we're going to see again drastic improvements when it comes to quality of life.
To me, it's kind of those two things. There's a bit of feel in that, the responsiveness and the developer workflow, and in the end, being able to load a lot faster.
Will this allow us to increase the player count in the short term? We have server OCS. Can we have more players? In one server, that is.
In theory, it definitely should. I think we're at the point now to where we haven't yet done sufficient testing that we would basically want to definitively say one way or the other. That's certainly what we're thinking we're going to want to be. We're certainly going to be doing tests and seeing how far we can push it. It is possible that as you completely remove one bottleneck, that you expose some other things that also need to be dealt with, and whether those would be egregious enough in terms of a problem, or whether you'd be able to quickly patch them up and deal with them and push it out with 3.8 with a player count, or whether some of that stuff would have to move to 3.9. That part we don't yet know, but that's definitely where we're headed.
Yeah.
Very interesting here. This is definitely something that a lot of players, a lot of people have been voicing about. They have been really concerned about the player cap, limited to 50 players per second. Being limited to 50 players per server was nice when we were just confined to the Crusader planetary area. But now that we have our corp, we've got MicroTech, we've got Hurston, basically all these 50 players are now going to be split throughout the entire solar system, and the chances of interacting with players is getting slimmer. The more content you add, the less chances we have of actually meeting other players, except if you are going to some of the major hubs like Port Olisar maybe, or some of the other planets or landing zones. But if you have more players, and of course that means more possibilities, more people working with you, more combat bad situations. So this is all positive. Obviously, this is not something that's going to happen in 3.8 because they're really testing the core technology for server-side object container streaming, but they're really saying here that this is something that they do want to try for 3.9. Not confirmed yet, but this is one of their objectives, and I like what I'm hearing here.
To explain why that profiling is so important, and the real reasoning behind it is that there's going to be a sweet spot for us where it makes a lot of sense to actually have that exact player count, because it has a little bit to do with how players play, where they're going to be positioned within the server. But conceptually, you could end up in a state that we've got, let's say 200 players that are in every single location, every single object container, and it's actually all loaded in the end. But it really depends on how the players are playing. But we will find a sweet spot in here, because there is an edge where we go too far that it's actually not helping us as much. But I think even in that case, we're still going to be better.
But that's a perfect example of where SOX is really it's a building block towards the
100%.
future, in terms of, yes, if you actually had a perfect distribution of players, then you could wind up eliminating much, if not necessarily all, of the benefit of SOX. The server mesh would eventually fix this by simply going, oh, well, you're over in this area, we're going to mate you to a server that only covers items in that area, and therefore the long-term path will deal with that very elegantly.
Easy here talking about server meshing. Of course, server meshing is not going to be ready until at least late 2020, if not 2021. It is the last piece of the puzzle that is going to allow thousands of players to be all together within the same instance. This is how we're gonna get battles. This is how we're gonna get large areas, landing zones with lots of players. Maybe going to Terra at the same time to either do shopping, trading, sightseeing. There are going to be some places which are going to be more popular than others. There are going to be some places where lots of players will be at the same time. They need server meshing for that to actually happen.
The server-side OCS, we don't have the full universe persistence in, so we're going to have a more enhanced version of persistence in 3.8 than we previously had. So if you buy things or rent things or do stuff with in-game money that you've earned, and the in-game money you earn will have the ability to persist it between patches even from 3.8 onwards. But the proper persistence is, I go anywhere, I take my Elroy's cup, I get my coffee at the space station, I take it with me, I get on the spaceship, I fly to a planet, I walk in a forest, I litter, I drop it on the floor in the forest, I get off, I fly away, and then Sean flies to the forest and sees an Elroy cup when he arrives in that area. So,
and I grab it and I sell it.
Yeah, there you go. But
then you come back and you think that there's a bug in the game because it's gone, whereas in reality, Sean took it.
Yeah, so the second stage of the SOX is the full persistence comes in with what we call the iCache, which basically will save out all the state and position of any item in the game when you move away from it. So if you
Now, the example they're using here with the cup is just one example. It's quite trivial, actually, but Chris likes these kind of details. But it actually has a much more important function. This is going to allow for player-owned bases, player-owned assets on planetary surface. Say, for example, you have a line claim, you want to buy an outpost, you are bringing a pioneer. I was looking for the name of that ship. You're bringing in the pioneer. The pioneer builds that outpost. That outpost is going to stay there forever on that place until, if it's destructible, until another enemy organization eventually destroys it. Maybe not the outpost, but the turrets, definitely. So here they're just taking that example with the cup, but this can actually work for lots of different things. For example, let's say you steal a ship. One of those ships that can only be gotten from the AI. You steal a nine-tail, a very shiny blue and orange nine-tail caterpillar. That's really awesome, right? Or you steal an Idris, maybe. We're going to have the Idris missions coming up soon, either in 3.8 or in 3.9. You steal one of those ships. You definitely want to keep that ship. That ship, you are going to hide that ship in a specific place at a specific time. That ship, let's say you log out, that ship will still be here when you log out. Maybe someone else will find it and steal it. or maybe when you come back, it's going to be exactly the same location. That is what they're talking about here when it comes to full persistence of objects.
You have to, which is what's happening on the server right now. It streams out like what's there, and right now we're persisting it in the server's memory, but we aren't persisting it back to a cloud database just yet. So if you play the session, you drop stuff, put stuff everywhere, it'll all persist in the session in 3.8 server OCS. But in a future version, I don't know when iCache is coming in, but with that, what will happen is, besides us saving the state, which we already will do in memory in 3.8, it will then save it to a back-end database. So if you come back a week later and go to that location, as long as Sean hasn't come and stolen my cup, and I go back and go, oh, I dropped my cup on the forest, the cup will be there. And the really cool thing about that is that all the dynamic items, whether they're cups or spaceships or guns or armor suits or a note you leave someone, will persist in the world where they are. And I don't really know any MMO that has that level of detail at the scale that we have that allows you to do that. And so that is very cool, because once that's running, that also means that, like, you want to create a settlement on a planet,
You can.
you can.
Yeah, that's the
There we go. That's exactly what Chris is talking about here. That's the end game of that technology. It's called the iCache technology, brand new technology here that is not often talked about. Maybe I should make a video about it in the future. Please tell me in the comments down below if this is something that you're interested in. But yes, they definitely need that iCache technology that is going to work combined with the other technologies, SOCs and server version, to create that persistence. And it is going to open up for so much more within the verse.
But that's the big part of it, is it's emergent, and they're actually affecting the world, the universe. In so many games, it's all very scripted. It's all very, they say you're affecting the world, but hey, after 200 fights and all that, there's no direct affection, right? But this is actually an evolution by the players. They're again creating settlements, setting up things. Yep. I think that's exciting.
In 3.8, being a...
Oh, here we go. Melee Combat. I made a video yesterday about it. Melee Combat, not really convinced. Still needs a lot of work. I mean, it's great to have this in a game. It is a step forward towards the right direction, because we definitely need to do that. But please check out my latest video about Melee Combat that I did yesterday. I'm not really happy about it yet, but yeah, again, it's just PTU, so hopefully they're going to improve that and work on that in future iterations.
Fun of Fight Club, we have something else coming, which I think is kind of cool. We've teased a bit.
This is a real exciting feature that's actually coming in. It's not just melee combat with your fists, it's melee combat with some melee type weapons. And I'm not sure, we are going to introduce a knife, I believe, into the PU. We'll put it in the shops and everything. So with melee combat, you get the ability, of course, to make some punches. And it's not just, simple one punch. We put, a little bit of thought into this, a little bit of fun into it. There's some combos that you can do. You can decide to do, a heavy right or a quick jab.
You
Going
can
to be the
block
quick
too,
attacks.
right?
Well, I haven't really figured out how to do those combos. I definitely need a little bit more practice. But yeah, it is not very intuitive so far. Obviously, I can do punches, right, left, but doing those combos and those special moves here requires some skills, and yeah, it's definitely not at the range of everybody. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of practice. The fist fights that I had with my good buddy Anak definitely did not look like this, for sure.
And you can block on top of it. But and it's important. It's not just like a permanent, easy block where you're just like you put it up and then no matter what they do, they can't hit you. No, it's positional as well. Huge props right now to the actor feature team, because I mean they were proper OCD over getting this thing done. I mean, I remember seeing a video that and I think they just sped it up. They showed me sort of pass one, pass two, and then it got and whether they were doing this when I see
didn't know that was a problem.
when I see version 58. I'm going, oh, nice, guys.
And we've already started to integrate this into the law system so that punching on other people is a crime. You will have, there will be
But
penalties
it's not quite as
applied.
bad as blood.
Now, here's where I think CIG should take it to the next level, is that right now it's not even a crime, because if you cannot pull your fists out in areas like Port Olisar, Area 18, Hurston, you can't do it. You press 0, which is the key to get your fists out. You can do it at Grim X, but you can't do it at some of the more lawful landings. So this needs to be fixed. Also, if you're having a fist fight at GrimX, it's not doing anything. You can't take down NPCs, which I think is a big shame. You can't take down even players because you are in that damn armistice zone that needs to go. So I really hope that one day those armistice zones are going to go. We'll be able to draw out guns, we'll be able to draw out our fists and actually do damage to people in those places where we're not supposed to do so. That would make it so much cooler.
Killing them.
Well, that's the whole purpose of the law system, which is we can basically mete out different levels of punishment
And
depending
different
upon what it
areas
is
we
you're
can,
doing.
like so for instance, maybe in Grim Hex, no one cares. You can get in a fist fights, but if you're getting into a fist fight in the middle of Area 18, that's not so cool.
No,
Another
that's
reason
not
why
true.
this is actually really
GrimX right
important
now
is
not
there will be
working.
certain
Not
areas
working.
within the
We need
game
to get
to
rid
where
of the
you're
armistice
restricted from carrying
zones so that
weapons,
when we
prison
have
being
fist
one of
fights,
them.
they
It's like
actually
when
do
you're
damage.
in prison, you clearly you don't actually have guns or any of the traditional stuff. So if you want to be able to defend yourself, you'd better be fairly good at hand-to-hand fighting.
The last part of Melee, which I didn't mention, was also the takedowns, which is another thing that comes in as part of that. So that is something that you can do player to player. So nobody's paying attention or anything like that. You can avoid it a little bit. But you also get that component of it too. So if you got a knife, you got fists, you got a lot of different ways to take somebody out.
And of course, the other big one that will have a very big impact on some of the missions and stuff is the potential for stealth gameplay, and that type of stuff. Whether it's actually knives or just silent takedown, sleeper holes, whatever else.
We got some cool mission stuff coming in.
Whoa. Did you hear what Tony Z says here? We're talking about sleeper holes. Like literally grabbing someone around the neck with an arm and making that person pass out because they don't have enough oxygen going through their brains. This is something that nobody's mentioned before. We're gonna have not just not just fist fights. We're gonna have actual wrestling in the game, and I can't wait for that, guys. Because you guys know I'm a huge wrestling fan, and if we actually have wrestling in the game, oh my gosh, those combats that we're gonna have, those fight clubs are gonna be amazing. Please, CIG, bring us a wrestling ring in one of the bars of the verse. That this would be so epic. Please, CIG, do it.
Yep.
3.8.
The biggest introduction would be the 890 jump mission. And then from there, we're doing a lot of kind of quality of life passes on the way that the mission works, how things are doled out to the player, what actually happens in the mission. Some of them are a little bit boring, and figuring out how we can interject new things.
Oh yeah, Todd Pepe is totally right there. Some of the missions are indeed boring. Thinking of some of the investigation missions, wouldn't it be great if we actually had some FPS AI in those investigation missions? Thinking of, for example, that mission that you have to do at the Kovalex here. Just go there, click on some buttons, figure out what happened to the guy. Why did Kovalex blow up here, the Gondo, and that's about it. We definitely need to spice things up. Some delivery missions here. I would love if there were some ambushes, even at some of the lawful outposts. So we definitely need a little bit of more excitement and variety, maybe a little bit of more danger for some of those missions. I hope that this is the direction we're heading to.
Same with interjecting AI and other aspects to freshen it up.
Yeah, and that's one that we want to capitalize on going forward. I think we're at the point now to where the combat is mature enough, and some of the other loose ends
There's
that we need to
definitely
tie up.
improvements to the combat that will be in 3.8 that you haven't seen, that people haven't seen in 3.7, or didn't even see in the video we did with because that was super early work in progress on the 890 jump mission. That I think all the time the AI is getting better, their ability to pathfind, beyond 3.8, just pathfinding on planets, or arriving on a ship, getting off a ship, getting coming in as reinforcements.
Transitioning between different zones.
Yeah, people riding the tram, for instance.
Yeah,
But
that's a huge one.
But that's one of the most interesting ones to me, which
Not in 3.8, just to let everyone know.
I would say
it will be in 3.940. Also, one other thing we're delivering with 3.8 is the space stations or rest stops.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell us a bit about that? Because
So,
it's greatly expanded from what we have.
yeah, just the overall size.
So the rest of the show here is talking about features that we are seeing in 3.8, like the stations that we've seen. We've talked about these more. So these were the juiciest part of this pilot talk here. A little recap of what they've done and what we're supposed to expect with the game. I tried to bring you my own experience here from having played the game for I would say maybe thousands of hours now, including 3.8, dozens of hours in 3.8 PTU already. So really exciting with what they are seeing here. Yeah, quality of life improvements. With this is we've already mentioned it. It's mostly because of server-side logic and streaming. So as they're going to basically repeat things that they've talked about before. So this is very promising, guys. I am really excited about what we are going to see in this patch. I think that this is probably going to be the best experience in Star Citizen that we're going to that we'll ever have so far, and it is only going to get better as these technologies get refined, as more technologies get implemented into the game. So please tell me what you guys think in the comments down below. What did you think about this pilot talk? Were you glad to see Chris? Were you glad to see Tony Z? Tony Z, very rare on some of those media videos here from CIG. So it's always great to hear what these guys have to say. That's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching once again. Don't forget that this month I've got the giveaway. I'm giving away a Celebration gear pack. This is for all the subscribers of the YouTube channel. All you need to do is to be a subscriber to get a chance of winning and to comment to any videos posted this month. The winner will be announced early January. Also, I'm also giving away, thanks to Dax Parole, a C8 Pisces. This is for all the Patreons. If you want to support the channel furthermore, the link in the description down below. I'll see you guys for more videos very soon. This is the Eradicator. I'm signing out.